Hello friends and welcome back. So today we will discuss about KPI, that is key performance indicators, KRI key risk indicators, and KCI key control indicators. All of these three are important elements in risk management which helps organization to monitor performance, anticipate risks, and strengthen control measures to minimize potential impact. So without wasting any time, grab a notepad and let's begin. Key performance indicators measure how well a process is performing in terms of its stated goal. This measurement provides insights into whether action may be required with the goal of allowing changes to be made before significant impact occurs, right? KPIs are like a scorecard that shows how you are performing in important areas, and KPIs track how well you are doing things like customer satisfaction and helps you set goals to avoid future problems like any future security issues. For example, a KPI may indicate that an error rate of 5% is acceptable, which implies that an error rate higher than 5% is unacceptable and requires escalation with some form of response, right? How to define KPIs? A KPI should be based on SMART matrices, which you might have heard we keep our SMART goals. So KPI should also be based on SMART matrices. Specific should be clear and concise. Measurable should be quantifiable and not subjective. Attainable, KPI should be realistic, which can be achieved. It should be relevant and time bound. Let's understand it with an example. Suppose your company wants to improve customer satisfaction with the online checkout process. How will you achieve this KPI? Reduce the average time to complete checkout by 20%. Track the average time it takes a customer to complete checkout using website analytics software. It should be realistic. A 20% reduction is ambitious but still achievable based on previous data. A faster checkout process directly impacts customer satisfaction and reduces cart rejection rates. And you can set the timeline you will achieve this reduction within the next quarter or next 6 months. Examples of potential KPI include network availability, like setting a target uptime percentage of more than 99% in next quarter to minimize disruption. Customer satisfaction, increase customer satisfaction score by a specific amount, 10 points, 10% in a year through targeted improvements. Complaints resolved on first contact. This can be also your potential KPI which you can set. Aim for a higher first contact resolution rate, which can be 70% or 80% in next 6 months for quicker issue handling, right? Time between data request and presentation. Reduce the average turnaround time for data request for faster decision making, like 24 hours in next quarter or 6 months. Employee awareness sessions. Ensure a high attendance rate like 80% or 90% as per your need for mandatory training sessions to maintain a well-informed workforce. So these are some of the potential KPIs, and these track how well you are doing, and you can identify areas for improvement and stay focused on your goals. KPIs are often used on charts or graphs to report compliance to management. Key risk indicators. Key risk indicators are used to measure risk levels in comparison to defined risk threshold, so that the organization receives an alert when a risk level approaches an unacceptable level. By putting tracking and reporting mechanism in place that alerts staff to a developing or potential risk, the enterprise gains the opportunity to respond to the risk before it produces unacceptable outcomes, right? Key risk indicators act like early warning signs for potential problems. Let's look at some of the examples of key risk indicators or KRIs. Unauthorized equipment or software. A sudden increase could signal security breaches or employee misuse. SLA breaches. Frequent exceeding of service level agreements might indicate overloaded systems or potential service disruptions. High downtime. Rising downtime due to incidents suggest infrastructure weaknesses or operational issues that could lead to bigger outages, right? Patch deployment delays. Slow patching times leave systems vulnerable to known security exploits. Incident response delays. Longer response time to operational issues indicate weaknesses in handling problems, potentially leading to escalated situations. And outdated antivirus. Unprotected devices increase the risk of malware infection and data breaches. So these are some of the KRIs which highlight potential weaknesses before they can cause significant harm. How key risk indicators support various aspects of risk management. Risk appetite and tolerance. Key risk indicators help validate if the risk being managed align with the organization tolerance level. For example, frequent security breaches, which is our KRI, might indicate a need to adjust risk tolerance or increase risk appetite. I have made a detailed video on risk appetite, risk capacity, and risk tolerance of an organization, which you can watch for better understanding. KRI support in risk identification. By monitoring KRIs, you identify emerging risks before they become major problems. For example, a rise in unauthorized software might point towards a potential data security risk, right? Risk mitigation. KRIs acts as triggers for taking corrective action. For example, slow patch deployment time could trigger a review of patching procedures to prevent future vulnerabilities. KRIs also support risk culture. By focusing on relevant KRIs, the organization emphasizes areas that requires attention. For example, tracking antivirus updates promotes a security-aware culture within the company. How to select KRIs for your organization. Selecting key risk indicators require careful consideration to ensure they effectively monitor and predict risks. What are some of the major mistakes people make when selecting KRIs? Selecting key risk indicators require careful consideration to ensure they effectively monitor and predict risks. Some of the major mistakes which people make while selecting KRIs are not linked to specific risk. KRI should directly relate to identifiable risk within an organization. Like if an organization faces a cybersecurity threat from phishing attacks, a relevant KRI would measure the number of phishing emails detected. Incomplete or inaccurate due to unclear specifications. KRIs must have clear definitions and measurement criteria. For example, if the KRI is number of cybersecurity incidents, it should specify what constitutes an incident, like data breach or malware infection, and how they are counted. Difficult to measure, aggregate, compare, and interpret. KRI should be measurable and interpretable to provide actionable insights. For instance, if a KRI aims to measure employee training effectiveness, it should have clear matrices like the percentage of employees completing training modules. Results cannot be compared over time. Effective KRIs allow for trend analysis over time to identify change in risk levels. For example, if a KRI tracks the average time to detect and respond to an incident, it should enable comparison between different periods to evaluate improvement. Not linked to goals. KRIs should be aligned with the organization goals and objectives. Since the organization's internal and external environment are constantly changing, the risk environment is also dynamic. So the KRI should be evaluated on a regular basis to verify that each indicator remains properly related to the risk appetite and tolerance level of the enterprise. Using KPIs with KRIs and what is relationship between them. Key performance indicators and key risk indicators are often used in conjunction with one another to measure performance and mitigate risk. KPIs help to identify underperforming aspects of organizations and areas of business that may require additional resources and attention, while KRIs provide early warnings of increased risk within the enterprise. Failing to meet performance goals in itself is a risk, so the two can be used together in risk management. Let's understand it with an example. Think about a company that wants to keep its customers' system safe from unpatched updates. They decide that all important updates must be installed within 30 days. This rule they made is like a goal, and development of this policy to install important updates within 30 days is an example of KPI which they want to meet. Now, regularly company checks if they are meeting this goal by tracking how long it takes to install these updates. If companies see average time to deploy patches is taking longer each time and company is in danger of exceeding the 30-day threshold, then it's a sign of trouble. To catch problems early, they might set another measure, which is key risk indicator, that will represent a threshold or level of performance that is getting dangerously close to exceeding the KPI but has not yet done so. By setting a KRI of 25 days, management can see that time to deploy a patch has now increased to the point of triggering an alert. This means that whenever average time to deploy patches reaches to 25 days, it will trigger an alert because we have set another measure, which is key risk indicator at 25 days, right? This example shows how KPIs and KRIs can be used to monitor and track the goals, right? Now moving to key control indicators. Certain indicators reveal the effectiveness of control. Key control indicators measure how well a control is performing in reducing causes, consequence, or likelihood of a risk. And sometimes they are called as control effectiveness indicators. Let's understand some of the examples of key control indicators. Phishing emails not blocked by filtering systems. This indicates a weakness in organization's email filtering system, which is a control measure intended to prevent phishing attacks. The number of unblocked phishing emails serve as a key control indicator because it highlights the effectiveness of this control, right? Administrators with rights to both test and production environments. This indicates a weakness in segregation of duties control, which aims to prevent unauthorized access to sensitive environments. Ideally, a single person should not have access to both the environments. The number of administrators with access to both testing and production environments serve as a key control indicator because it reflects the effectiveness of this control action in maintaining segregation of duties. Unsolicited prompts for second factor authentication. This indicates a weakness in password security control, particularly in implementation of 2FA. The occurrence of unwanted prompts for second factor authentication serve as a KCI, key control indicator, because it indicates the effectiveness of this control in preventing unauthorized access to accounts. Each key control indicator has its own acceptable limits determined by the importance of the assets it safeguards and the potential impact on the organization if those assets are compromised, right? Since controls directly influence risk levels, key control indicators are not only linked to the controls themselves but also to the risk those controls are designed to manage. So if key control indicators are not linked to the controls themselves, then we will not get the proper information. I have discussed more in details about residual risk and inherent risk, how these are calculated. You can go and watch that video for better understanding. Now let's understand what is the relationship between key risk indicators and key control indicators. By monitoring key control indicators regularly, you can identify weaknesses in your controls before they become major issues. This allows you to take corrective action and prevent key risk indicators, which are actual risk events, from happening. Abnormal KCI readings can signal an increased risk of a future key risk indicator. Let's understand it with an example. So we have a key control indicator number of firewall rule violations detected per week and a key risk indicator, that is number of successful unauthorized access attempts to the network per month. An organization monitors its firewall logs regularly to track the number of firewall rule violations, which was our KCI. 1 week, the KCI key control indicator shows a significant increase in rule violations compared to the usual trend. Upon further investigation, the security team discovers that several employees have been bypassing firewall restrictions to access restricted websites and download unauthorized software. By identifying this increase in firewall rule violations through the KCI, the organization can take corrective actions promptly. Security team can strengthen firewall configuration, implement strict access control, and conduct employee awareness training on acceptable internet usage policy. And this proactive measure helped prevent unauthorized access attempt to the network, which was our KRI, from occurring. reducing the risk of potential data breach and cyber attacks, right? I hope you have understood what is relationship between key control indicators and key risk indicators. In this example, regular monitoring of key control indicators enable the organization to detect weaknesses in its network controls before they lead to actual security incidents, right? Taking corrective action based on key control indicator observations help mitigate risk and prevent key risk indicators from materializing into significant security events. I hope now you have understood what is relationship between key risk indicator and key control indicators. Earlier we discussed relationship between key risk indicators and key performance indicators. So key risk indicators tell you that there is a potential problem, and key control indicators help you see if your controls are working to prevent that problem or not. I hope now you have understood what is KPI, what is KRI and what is KCI, how they are interlinked and why these are important steps in risk management. If you found value from this video, please share it with your friends. Like and subscribe. Consider joining me on LinkedIn. See you soon with another topic, another video.